Many people approach statistics with a sense of dread because, as they explain, I'm no good at math. If you're not good with math, I have some good news for you. The mathematics of statistics are very basic. All you have to do is add, subtract, multiply, divide, square, and square root. If you know how to use those mathematical techniques, you can do statistics. The secret to feeling comfortable with statistics is knowing that stats is more about logic than it is about math. The actual math will require things you already know how to do. You'll need some practice in knowing when to use what technique and the order by which you will approach the calculations. But to do the math, you will have a lot of tools to help you. I encourage my students to use a calculator or an abacus to do the math. I will show you how to use formulas in Excel to simplify the math. And of course, we will always have statistical software to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. When we are working by hand, however, it is important to know what math to do when. For that, we need to know the order of operations. The order of operations can be remembered with the mnemonic PEMDAS or the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." When the formula requires a string of arithmetic computations, use PEMDAS. That stands for parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide, add and subtract. Always work from left to right in the equation or formula. But because you begin solving the parentheses first, you may not actually begin at the left edge of the formula. Start with the parentheses. Then solve for exponents, numbers that are squared. Then do multiplication and division, again working from left to right. And finally, do addition and subtraction, working from left to right. If you are solving a ratio, you must solve the numerator and denominator separately before you can divide. We will look at an example of this in a moment. When you get to your final answer, you should round. Our general rule will be to round to 2 decimal points for a final answer. The rules for rounding are 5 rounds up and 4 rounds down. What you should do is look at the number in the 3rd decimal place. If the number in the 3rd decimal place is 5 or greater, round up the number in the 2nd decimal place by adding 1 to it. If the number in the 3rd decimal place is 4 or less, round down by not changing the number in the 2nd decimal place. And you only do this rounding at the end. Be cautious about rounding during your calculations, because rounding introduces error, so round at the last step. An easy way to remember the rounding rule is 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, raise the score. Along the way, I am going to teach you some formulas to calculate statistics by hand. The formulas will look odd at first, but the secret is just to plug in numbers. If I gave you the formula, B equals AX plus K, then told you that A equals 4, X equals 11, and K equals 3, you could plug in those numbers to the formula. You would get B equals 4 times 11 plus 3. You would work from left to right, doing multiplication and division first, then addition and subtraction. 4 times 11 is 44, plus 3 is 47. So B equals 47. Sometimes the formula will have this symbol that looks like a crooked capital E. That is the Greek letter sigma, and it means add up these numbers. It is read as the sum of. Sigma x is the sum of x, and it means add up all of the x values to get a total. If 4, 11, and 3 were x values, then the sum of x would be 4 plus 11 plus 3, or 18. If we added up the squared x values, that would be the sum of x squared. Often what we will do is calculate values, such as by summing them up, then plug them into a formula. For example, this is the formula for standard deviation. We will learn about this formula when we studied variability. Notice the sigma, the x's, the exponents, and the letter n. To get the values like the sum of x, we would add up a series of x values. To get the sum of x squared, first we would square each of the previous x values, then add up the squared values. The letter n stands for sample size, or the total number of x values. Once we have calculated the needed values, we would plug them into the blank formula. The sum of x plugs in as 146. The sum of x squared is 1484, and n is 15. Using our PEMDAS rule, we would start with the parentheses. We do have a 146 in parentheses, but we would not need to do anything more with it. Then we would move to exponents. We have a square. We would square the 146 to get 21,316. Then we move to division, still trying to clean up the numerator. 21,316 divided by 15 is 1421.06. Then we do subtraction. We might as well clean up the denominator. 15 minus 1 is 14. In the numerator, 1484 minus 1421.06 is 62.93 with rounding. Now we are ready to divide the ratio. Remember, we can't do this division until we clean up both the numerator and the denominator. The value is 4.4952. Take the square root, and the final answer, rounded to 2 decimal places, is 2.12. When we use formulas, we do summation to get the values that we need, then we plug them into the formula. Then we use PEMDAS to solve the formula. Most disciplines in the Health and Human Services field use APA style for write-ups. As a statistics student, it is important that you not only know how to do the statistics, but that you also know how to write up the results. It's important for you to remember that SPSS does not give you output that is in proper APA style. Never turn in raw SPSS output in your homework or copy it into a paper or a poster. You must always format the SPSS output first. As we learn each new statistical technique, I will show you exactly what you need to know to write up your results in APA style for publication.